Welcome, everyone. My name is Katie Capuzzo, and I'm the General Manager of WISE. And together, we're a global community dedicated to empowering women in sales with the network and the knowledge needed to be successful. Huge thanks to our partners for making events like this possible, and special thanks to Donaldson and Prophecy.io for lending us the panelists on screen with me. Negotiation and promotion conversations can be tricky, especially when external factors are at play. Thankfully, today we have two experts to guide us along the way. So, joining me in the conversation is Tynise Moore, Senior HR Business Advisor at Donaldson, and Angela Hooper, VP of Customer Success at Prophecy.io. Tynise, I'll hand it over to you first to tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yes. Well, I am definitely excited to be here. Once again, my name is Tynise Moore. I am a senior HR advisor here at Donaldson. And I've actually been here for a couple days beyond 2 months now. So very fresh to my role, which I am enjoying. And once again, I'm excited to bring information to you all and hopefully someone will be able to utilize it.
I'm sure we all will. Angela, I'll hand it over to you.
Again, thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. I'm passionate about this topic, so when you presented it, I was all in like immediately. I'm Angela Hooper. I like to call myself a serial startup salesperson. I am currently the vice president of customer success, and within my organization, I have purview over things that touch the customer after the sale has happened. So that's everything from customer success, professional services, support, training, adoption, retention, and renewals. And I've been doing this type of go-to-market work for coming on 20 years, primarily in the data and analytics space. I've worked for large companies, I've worked for small companies, and I've had multiple roles at all kinds of companies. So excited to talk about how I got on this path and some of the things that I picked up from wonderful mentors. And I hope to share that information with the group today.
Awesome. We are going to unravel all of those things that both of these ladies just touched on. As a reminder, throughout the conversation, let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat. And if you have a question, throw it into the Ask a Question feature at the right side of the screen, and we'll get to that during the Q&A portion towards the end. All right, let's get into it. This first question is for both of you, and Tynise, we'll start with you. When I was a recruiter, candidates would often say, I've always been told to negotiate, so I plan to do that no matter what the offer comes in at. What's your take on that perspective on always negotiating in an interview process?
Yes. So I don't necessarily think that that's a bad take on entering into conversations when it comes to negotiations. I do want you to be careful when it comes to that and making sure that if an offer is presented to you, that you're really doing your due diligence when it comes to figuring out if that range is within reason, if you're comfortable with that range, because if you're comfortable with it, maybe you just want to stay there. However, ultimately, organizations do already have a budget that would include a minimum, a midpoint, and then a maximum range. So there could potentially always be room for negotiation, which is why I said it's not a bad take on approaching those conversations. So definitely, if you feel comfortable with going back to the table, asking for a different rate, a different salary, I definitely would support that decision. By all means, ask. The worst that they can say is no.
Mm-hmm. Angela, what are your thoughts on that?
This is a women in sales group. Um, and salespeople negotiate. They negotiate with their contracts, they negotiate with their customers. They are used to negotiating with their salaries and their roles. So I think the one thing that you have to remember is negotiation is ubiquitous within our organization, within our domain. And everything you know or you read about negotiations holds true when you're trying to negotiate that new position, when you're trying to negotiate that new role or expanded role. The number one thing that I would say is negotiate the process. Understand, do the discovery. What is the next step? What is the decision criteria? What is the process? What is their range? And understand all the variables around what you're going after from their perspective in any sales deal, you would do this anyways. But negotiation isn't just negotiating the dollars and cents. Negotiating is doing your homework, doing your research on what the next step in that process is, and trying to be aware and control it. My concern is that everyone thinks negotiating is, I need 50 grand more, or I need more PTO. That's not only the negotiating. I had the privilege of taking the negotiation trainings at Harvard with Deepak Malhotra. Now, he wrote a great book called Negotiating the Impossible. If you are in sales and you want to know about the art of negotiating, all the way down from CIA agents to high-powered salespeople, all of those tactics apply when you're talking about yourself, your product, and your money. So my take is understand the process, and then you can negotiate your numbers more effectively.
Yeah, great takes on that. Just want to put out to everyone, is everyone hearing? Charlene put a note in there asking if people are getting sound. It's coming through on our end. So if it's coming through on yours, just throw a thumbs up in there. You may need to refresh, Charlene. As it pertains to Lisa's follow-up there, do you recommend asking where the offer lands among a range? If they do have a bottom, middle, and top tier, is it okay to follow up with like, how does this offer land amongst that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Nodding from both. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it sounds like everyone else can hear. Perfect. So Charlene, just refresh and see if that works. All right. This next question is for you, Tynise. Under the HR umbrella, you transitioned from the recruiting side to focusing more on benefits and have since been both a generalist and a specialist. Talking benefits, payroll, employee relations isn't for everyone. So why do you love what you do?
So I came from a different background. I came from a cosmetology background. Went to school, got my cosmetology degree, and a requirement of that degree was also to take a couple business courses. That left me with additional credits. I took it upon myself to figure out what I can do with those residual credits that I had because I did not want them to just hang out there. One of the local colleges to that school that I went to was a college that offered HR. They had several other programs as well, but HR, of course, is what ended up catching my eye. It caught my eye because of the variety of different things that encompasses HR. So looking at the one sheet, one page or document when it comes to HR and what HR is really about, there were so many topics. There was benefits, there was recruitment, employee relations, payroll, like anything underneath the HR umbrella, they had it on this one page document. So coming from that creative background of cosmetology where I thrive off variety, nonetheless, that was a no-brainer for me to proceed with human resources. So going into the profession, I easily learned, like right off bat, that there were certain areas that probably was not conducive to my career just because I didn't thrive in those areas. So I did start getting different experiences underneath the HR umbrella to kind of zero in on what it is that I enjoy. But nonetheless, where I am right now in my current position, and honestly, where I was previously in a more generalist capacity, I had the opportunity to touch on several different um, topics or several different areas when it came to human resources. So I was able to talk about payroll. I was able to talk about benefits, and I was able to take on employee relations investigations. So that way, I was still getting my creative itch kind of scratched in a sense. So that is the aspect of HR that I enjoy. It's that 2 days are not the same. Each day I come in, I can plan for something, I can have a to-do list, and literally nothing on that to-do list gets taken care of because something took precedence. So I thrive off of that. I thrive that things change and being agile in that moment.
For some, they probably got a faster heart rate when you said that you thrive off every day being different. I mean, a lot of us in the sales roles agree with that, but I know that for some that wouldn't be as exciting. So that's why it's cool to hear from those that are in these different departments, like you being in HR, because you have advocates across departments. And today we'll learn a little bit more about how people can utilize those advocates.
Absolutely.
So, Angela, as you mentioned earlier, you identify as a serial entrepreneur, given your years of startup experience at companies like Platfora, ThoughtSpot, Elation, and now Prophecy.io. Why do you enjoy the fast-paced and ever-changing environment of a startup?
I do. I love the small companies, and I've been employee number 7 in a consulting company that I started here in Denver, all the way up to employee number 300,000. So if you looked at the LinkedIn profiles we have to provide when we log in, you'll be like, oh, but she did time at IBM. And yeah, I've done the big company aspect as well. And I saw some questions that came in kind of preparation for this about there's the big company career progression, and then there's small company career progression. And how do you thrive, and how do you understand the differences of both? And so I'm going to start with the startups. You will never, like Tynise, you will never have a day where it's the same. You're constantly learning new experiences. You're never going to have the same year in a startup. My year 1 at a startup was vastly different than year 5 in a startup at ThoughtSpot, for example. And so the experiences and the stories you can tell about your impact change. And so with that change, you can craft your storyline around growth. So my take on startups and smaller companies, just smaller companies in general, is you're going to have more responsibilities, more accountability. You're betting on you. IBM, Deloitte, large companies with really proven sales trainings and career ladders, they're also good because you know exactly what's coming next. If I want to get from a level 4 to a level 6, there is a rubric and there is a design for that. And there's a pay scale for each one of those. If that's comfortable for you and you like knowing exactly what you're going after, that's great. They've got that locked in. In small companies, they don't, which gives you a little bit more flexibility in crafting your own role, understanding and being more creative, to Tynise's point, with your compensation. So I like the startups because for me, I'm not a ladder kind of person. I think of it as a jungle gym. I went from leading a team of 20 technical salespeople to being an individual contributor again and going back to carrying a bag. And so instead of climbing up that next rung of a ladder, I knew that if I went down and to the left, that my next 2 jumps were going to be way higher up because of the opportunities that were afforded to me and what I was exposed to in a smaller company. So if you're comfortable with the jungle gym analogy, smaller companies are going to give you more that flexibility. If you are structured and you like knowing what's coming and that goal that you're going to achieve, I'm going to be a distinguished engineer at AWS, or I'm going to be the global leader at Salesforce, there's a path and you know exactly how to burn down to that path. So both ways are right. Both experiences are right. You just have to figure out what resonates with your style and then try to find those companies that have that style that's going to kind of hold you and cradle you and keep you in the fold.
I love the jungle gym analogy. And I think for those on the call who are maybe an account executive right now and they feel like they're maybe being pushed to management or like that's the only path or next step for them, this is a way to take a deep breath and take that pressure off yourself, because as Angela's experienced, you've done the back and forth a bit. You've gone sideways this way and up and down. And I think it just broadens your experience. So there's not one size fits all. And it's also not, you're not stuck the leadership management path once you make that leap. If you decide it's not right for you and you want to try being an IC again, especially at a smaller company where you have different responsibilities. That's great. And let's stick with you on this one, Angela, and then I want your take, Tynise. Talking dollars and cents in an interview can be uncomfortable for candidates who don't want to unintentionally disqualify themselves. How should candidates respond when asked their target compensation?
I'll start with this one. As women, you have the negative voice, you have well, I can't ask for this much money, or if I undercut myself, there's always the negative voice in your head. I would say how I approach this, the state of California and other states have mandated that you have to put in the job posting the dollar range for this position. So this is becoming a real thing. You'll see this if you're going through the LinkedIn job ads, that they have to provide the low end and the high end range for these roles. Okay. One, I always look for that. And I'm always checking out what what the job postings are, right? Because like what's out there, what's fun, what's my research, how am I understanding what people should be paying for this type of job description. So that's the one thing I would ask for is when they are asking you for your numbers, it's okay to respond with a question. Hey, a lot of the other, are you following are you guys posting the range for these salaries? The range for this position. You can answer with a question if they haven't posted that range, but do your homework first, right? If it's out there, know it. And honestly, if it's 100K less than what you want to make, don't apply, because you're just going to make Tynise and my job that much harder to talk you out of like taking a 100K pay cut. It's kind of just rough. Like, I don't want to do that unless there's a really good reason why you want to go down your steps in the ladder. And hey, maybe you won the lottery and I'm really happy for you. But you can say, when they say, what's your salary expectation for this role? Well, I saw online that the salary range is 150 to 300,000 for this job. I'm within that range. I noticed that there was not a range posted on this position. Are you able to provide me that high end and low end range? You don't have to say, well, I'm on a 150 plan now, and I'd really like to get to a 185, and here's why I did it. That's not your first response. Your first response can be more discovery questions and understanding the process and the restrictions around the role that you're going for. And if I'm throwing out numbers and ladies, you're like, holy crap, 185, it's because I've been in enterprise large end sales for a while. So I know that there's a lot of different sales plans and compensation plans out there. So please don't get scared when I say these numbers, but we'll talk more about numbers and earnings and stuff later on in the call, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's helpful. Tynise, do you have anything to add there?
Great response, Angela. I echo so much of that. This is one of my favorite questions now when it comes to negotiating or asking for that range. So I always say, like, if you're at the beginning phase of the recruitment process, so perhaps you landed the interview and they want to send you over to the hiring manager for an additional interview, and they're asking you, what is your desired compensation? For me, that information is withheld. So I simply would tell them, thanks for asking that question. However, I would love to learn more about this position, the requirements, everything that is underneath this position before I offer my desired compensation. What I would love to know is if you are able to provide me with the range that this position is coming in on. 9 times out of 10, they will provide you with that range. Unlike California, I'm in Minnesota. We don't have the mandate to have the salaries listed out on the job descriptions just yet. I do know that that's coming down the pipeline at some point, which will be nice. Yes. Which would be nice. But at that point in time, much like Angela, it could be a discovery process. You're asking those questions like, I do have an amount in mind. However, I don't want to share that information right now, just due to not under cutting myself. short on what that range could potentially be. If you're at a phase of where perhaps you've gone through all the interviews and maybe you at the beginning you did give, a salary range that you desired to be at. However, after learning about the role, you're like, oh, okay, this is a lot more than I thought it would be. So I don't think that the rate that I had provided initially is aligned with the information that I was provided. So once the offer is given to you, you can then ask to sit on that offer for a day or two. If it's a role that needs to be filled like really quickly, I would suggest maybe sitting on it for a day and then doing your due diligence and then coming back to the conversation, just stating, thank you for this offer. I enjoyed getting to learn more about the company, more about this position. After learning about the position, I think that my desired range for this role would be X, Y, and Z. So after that's discussed, I would love to have another conversation with you in regards to that. If you all are willing to compensate me for my desired compensation. So those conversations can be had throughout. You would just ideally want to have it before the offer is accepted on your end.
Mm-hmm.
But yes.
And then does that also tie in late stages? If you've gone through the process, I think it's no surprise that candidates are interviewing elsewhere also. Is it okay to say, I actually received an offer, a few offers in this range, so my compensation has changed now? My desired comp is a little bit different based on the other offers I got? Or would you want to withhold that information?
Yeah, I would. I'm sorry if you wanted to go first, Angela.
Angela's making some head
I'm sure, well,
motions.
you're like, oh wow, the
I'm
poker face is
sorry.
coming through.
Uh-huh.
No, like I have a clear on the giving end and the receiving end of something like that. I want to know that you want my job.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care what other jobs you have and what they're paying for their requirements and their roles. If you come to me and say, well, Google's offering me this plan and I have it in writing, I'm just kind of like, do you really, is it the same job? Is the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. I put this in the chat. The roles and the responsibilities have to match. If I'm a hiring manager and I hear that you have these two other offers and this one's 10 grand higher and it's a completely different job, what do you want? Like, do you want this job or do you want 10 grand more? Because if you just want 10 grand more, good luck to you. But if you want this job and the one that I have that's offering, then I wouldn't shop numbers. I would I would lead with interest and desire to be at that company. That is
Mm-hmm.
so much more appealing to me as a hiring manager than I have two other offers and they're 200K and you're at 170. I will probably walk from the conversation at that point from you.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me personally. If it's late stage, like you said.
Yeah. No, that's great insight. And I would imagine that also applies to companies. Whereas if your role is with a startup and someone comes back and says, well, my offer is from Google, AWS, Oracle, all of a sudden there's a misalignment of like, wait, I thought you wanted to work at a startup, which is very different. So I would imagine that could
Mm-hmm.
lead to more questions for the hiring manager in a not great way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great insights there. Tynise, you had 7 managers within a 5-year time period. I can't even say it because it was so many at a previous employer. I'd imagine there were many challenges with that constant change. But what were the impacts to your own career pathing and promotion conversations, knowing you were kind of undergoing so much change management?
Yes. And actually, I had to redo the math on it, and it was eight
Wow.
managers. Yeah, eight managers that I had within a 5-year time span. Of course, my career suffered. My career suffered, and I definitely have to take accountability for this as well because it was not fully on the organization. I have to take accountability because what I wanted to do was remain a constant for the team that I supported. Because I knew that coming into that position, HR, that other HR position, had high turnover. However, I wanted to, be the constant. And I'm like, I want to be here for my associates so that they can have someone consistent to go to and build those relationships, and just be that person that they can always come to. Once again, my career suffered because of that, because the rotation of HR managers that came in. So each time someone came in, it was a matter of reproving myself to each person, having those career development conversations with each manager. And each time that it would happen, that person would be out the door. So it was a constant rotation of it. Ultimately, I would say it also played on my mental health ever so slightly, only because now there's a consistent rotation underneath me, and I'm viewing the situation as, is it me? Like, is it something that I'm doing? And of course, you get the reassurance like, no, it's not you, but it's a natural instinct. If all these people underneath you or that should be partnering with you are now leaving. The worst part of the whole thing is that my career definitely suffered. It took a back seat to me just trying to remain a constant for my associates and for an organization that didn't necessarily provide support when it came to my career development. Going forward in my career, I definitely would not sit through that. I would not recommend anyone to sit through the consistent rotation of managers, especially if you have career growth aspirations. Those are red flags. And I decided to see those red flags as pink. And you don't necessarily want to do that. So it's not recommended by any means.
Learning lessons, it sounds like. Wouldn't do it again, but it's something I think for people to know that you felt like you needed to be a constant for the employees at the company and the position that HR can get put in sometimes. And we don't always see that on the outside. So thank you for doing that, for being there for your employees. But I'm also glad you're not going to do it again because your own career pathing is a priority. Angela, did you want to add anything to that? I saw you nodding along, and it sounds like some people in the chat also have had a similar experience with managers.
I've had 5 CROs in 5 years. And in sales, it's okay, this is our sales methodology. This is what we're going to go forward with. These are our plays. And you're like, yeah. And then it changes right as you like master it. It's so frustrating. But I think what I learned after having 2 things that I learned after having all of that kind of change at the top and in leadership structure is know your story. What is the impact that you provide in your role? So every year when you do your performance evaluation, or you have to keep a running document of why you are a amazing woman. I want to say things that I shouldn't be recorded, but why are you amazing in your role? Because every new leadership change is an opportunity for you to manage up. You have to tell your story. Here's who I am as a seller or as an SDR or as anybody in the go-to-market organization to your new leader. Here's what I've done. Here's where I strive. Here's where I would love your help. Because you got to say it over and over and over and over again. The other thing I learned after having all of those sales leaders is, and you mentioned this, Tynise, is that having a company that cares about your growth. Let's be clear, a company cares about the company's growth first and foremost. Don't ever lose sight of that. You care about your career growth. You control your career growth, and you utilize the variables within the organization you work for to further your ideas on your growth. But their job, the company's job, is not to grow you as an employee necessarily. Their main goal is to grow the bottom line or the top line or whatever. keeping your people and retaining your people, good leaders are going to do. But you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So if you know your numbers, you know your worth, you have your story to tell your 5, 8, 12 different leaders in X amount of time, then you know who you are and you know your worth and you know where you're going in your career. Those people I see and I will lean on because they've got it together.
Mm-hmm. We've heard similar sentiments, but as it's always a good reminder in that even the best managers will not advocate for you like you can advocate for you. So you
Yes.
need to do what's best for you and keep those stories, like you said, top of mind of where you're coming in and making a difference in the business. Great examples, y'all. Angela, you've grown your career alongside motherhood. How have you navigated taking on more responsibility at work while your responsibilities at home have also grown?
It's not easy. I am in my mid 40s. I have four almost teenagers. I have three teenagers and one almost teenager. And so, but I did the bulk of my career and had babies and had kids and had jobs and did the jungle gym and switched around. So I think the number one thing I have is a great communication loop with my partner. He and I talk about this all the time, and we're on the same page. So I think having that support from either your partner or your family or somebody else externally really helps. Talk to somebody about it. It's not easy. What we go through in our work world and in our home life, don't keep it bottled up. So always have somebody that's on the same page with you is the number one thing that's helped me through all of it. And then the second thing is, back to that, know your worth and know your stories as your bosses change. Your self-image changes and you can go and not understand who you are professionally when the motherhood or the work or the family responsibilities are also there. And so I guess it's really important to be able to advocate for who you are professionally and keep yourself grounded in what you do well, what you need to work on, and not have your home responsibilities bleed into your image and how you feel about yourself professionally. But then the same thing goes for, why are you a great spouse? Why are you a great mom? Why are you a great volunteer? Just know that about yourself and know it about yourself personally and professionally, because I think that's where it gets really hard is when you don't feel stable in any of your roles in your life is when it becomes really hard to manage because you feel like you have to be perfect at home or you feel like you have to be perfect at work. But reflecting on what you have done well at home or what you have done well at work and the things you want, the goals and the next level that you want to get to in both of those arenas is going to help you stay grounded and sane. And I'm going to tell you, like, I don't do this well all the time. I can say these things, and then sometimes for like a good 6 months, I'll absolutely put it in practice, and then I'll hit a low point. Like on a plane back from Dallas last night, I'm like, oh, I am failing at this. Like, I hate this. I am not here for the kids thing event tonight. I am rolling in at 1 a.m. after a sales trip that I think didn't go well. And I'm losing it. I'm losing the connective tissues. It's okay to feel that, but don't beat yourself up on it for more than like a day. Pull yourself out. Don't get into the negative headspace. Focus on that goal. Know what you've done in the past that makes you awesome in all of your areas.
Mm-hmm. Not that you need a reminder from me, but you felt that way coming back from Dallas, and then you showed up for this call. And I mean, it's like you're doing it all. And I think that a lot of times as women, we can just be so hard on ourselves. And the outside world doesn't think that about us. They're singing your praises, and we just have earmuffs on to hear those things. So you both are amazing women, and I'm so excited to have you at this panel. Thank you. Tynise, salary isn't everything when it comes to negotiations. It's about the entire offer or promotion package. What are some benefits people can ask for outside of a traditional salary increase?
Yes. So definitely salary is not the only thing that you should be focused on when it comes to having those negotiation conversations. There's several aspects that you can look at. Some of the things that you probably don't want to negotiate because these are pretty standard within organizations are things such as like your 401k contributions or like the benefit layouts. Those may not waver so much depending on the position that you're going into. Like senior level executives, you may have a little bit more flexibility, but anything other than those are typically already laid out for you. So some of the other things that you are able to negotiate, of course, after COVID, a hybrid work schedule, work from home, flexibility in your schedule is a little bit easier to ask for nowadays. So if you prefer to work, 2 days from home or 3 days from home, definitely see if you're able to negotiate that on the front end. When it comes to signing on with an organization, you're able to consider sign on bonuses, especially if you come to a point of where you're leaving one organization. Let's say you're leaving before your bonuses are paid out, or yeah, before your bonuses are paid out and you're transitioning to that new company right before that happens, you're losing out on money by going to another organization. So addressing that in that conversation, because they could intentionally offer you a sign-on bonus to cover that. Another item would be PTO. You're able to negotiate PTO if the company is flexible about it. I have worked with both type of organizations where PTO was standardized. Everyone, no matter what your position was, you're coming in under this PTO schedule. So there's no flexibility whatsoever. I've worked for another organization that if you request an additional week of PTO and you have a good case around it, you could potentially be granted that additional week of PTO. Once again, these if you don't ask for them, you will never know. So it's better to ask and hear no than to not ask and wonder.
Mm-hmm.
You also have flexibility of course, your start date. Depending on your role, you may have some flexibility to change your position title or suggest a different position title. But those are more rare circumstances. However, these are all negotiables. A lot of things are negotiable when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to extending an offer, especially depending on the position that you're in. Perhaps the organization reached out to you, therefore, the ball is in your court. So definitely go ahead and negotiate the items that are of most importance to you.
This for either of you, a follow-up question. Why would a company be more partial to a sign-on bonus versus increasing your salary?
Okay, I can go through this because I
Mhm.
have financial responsibilities for the organizations in the past. The way any company is going to see you as a resource, you have a salary. Now, a lot of women here are in sales or in some kind of bonus capabilities. I recognize that. So consider that you have a salary and you have a bonus. That salary and bonus will say your salary is 80K and your bonus is 20K. Um, I budget headcount and my growth model based on that 100K plus anywhere from 15 to 22% additional costs to employ you. Right. So now we're not talking about 100K that I'm budgeting. We're talking about I'm budgeting 130K for you. If you say, I would like a signing bonus, that signing bonus of an additional 20K only hits in year one. It goes away. So my financial projections on you for year 2, 3, 4, my cost to carry you as an employee in my organization on my budget, I get that 20K back in the signing bonus on year 2. And knowing where they are in their financial cycle also really helps. If you're hired at the end of Q4 and you ask for a signing bonus, that signing bonus could hit in fiscal year for Q4 the previous year and not impact them on the following fiscal year. And then suddenly it's like, oh, great, I got some house money. if you're asking for signing bonuses at the beginning of Q1, there may not be room for that in the financial plan in Q1. So also kind of knowing where they are financially in the organization helps in that negotiating power.
Mm-hmm. That's super helpful and detailed. Thank you for explaining that. Mm-hmm. And along those same lines, since we are talking to sellers, commission is a big consideration and part of a compensation package, as OTE, especially in the past year or two, has not been as much of a guarantee with what's going on externally. So as a hiring manager, how do you address this?
Yeah. This is a fun one. I saw this as a question that came in, and when we were looking at the pre-questions, like, oh, we have to talk about this one. Mm-hmm. Ladies, when I started off and I moved from consulting into a sales position that had what's called on target earnings. So if you're not familiar with the acronym OTE, that probably took me 9 months to totally figure out how the heck am I getting paid here? I have no idea what this means. What do you mean? Like, I only get 80% of it and then I get 20%, but that 20% is dependent on how good the company does or how much I hit my sales targets. It was confusing for me. I asked a lot of stupid questions to my managers and to my people and sales mentors to help me fully understand it. And yeah, I probably have some Excel sheets out there that do really fancy math. So now I understand my on-target earnings and my total compensation package, maybe down to the penny, because you have to know your numbers. So, but I think what I'm seeing in the market today is the salaries and the on-target earnings and bonuses that might be promised in that range that you're going for in a company. If you're thinking about, hey, what the ranges were in 2018, 2019, that's what I want to make today, you have to think about the economic situation that these companies are in. What is the number? What I like to ask in those conversations is, great, so if I have an on-target earning of 100K and my variable is 20K, what's the percentage attainment that your sales field hit last year or last quarter? How many people are making their number? How much is the company selling? Because if you are highly leveraged and they give you 100K variable and you're like, sweet, my on target earnings is like, I just got this great big raise, but $80,000 of it you'll never see because they'll never pay it out because you can't sell this stuff. You can't attain. Like, maybe the company is struggling. Understanding how many sellers are hitting their number or SDRs are hitting their number, what you're going to be measured against on that variable component is so very important, because the economic situations of 2018 to 2022 was a big boom. Yay, money. We're in a different world now. So if they're offering you a huge OTE, who else in that company made that money last quarter? That's what I want to know. Because I'll bet on myself to do the work to make it work. But if nobody is hitting that number, or on average, the customer success people or the account managers on average make 78% attainment on their number, then you need to figure you're going to make 78 to 85% attainment on that variable. So just kind of knowing the history and the patterns will help you understand how much money is coming in and if that is truly a negotiable object or not.
Mm-hmm. And then once someone is hired, for those that are wanting to get promoted and they're getting the response from their manager that is like, this decision is above me, we're not offering any promotions right now, sorry, it can feel dismissive. So what's that take, given that you are in those roles, Angela, and probably have had many of those conversations?
That if you're in a role and you're asking for the promotion?
Yes, and managers are kind of dismissive, like, I can't do that. We are not giving promotions right now.
Yeah. So back to my original comment of know what you do and where you added value and where you kicked butt in your job and your career. That's kind of what you lead with. Hey, I've done these things. I've crushed my number and I'm looking for the next step. What is that career path? What is that promotion? What is that pay raise? but having the information to back up why you're asking for this raise is necessary. Um, in these economic situations, we're not, a lot of companies aren't doing cost of living raises or cost of living increases. They're not going to do promotions, or if they do a promotion, it might be a title only. Is that enough for you? Is that is that important? Do you want to go from a a senior to a principal, or a account executive to a senior account executive? That does actually have value, but it would be great if it came with some kind of monetary stock, extra vacation, um, dollars for professional development. So that's another thing to negotiate and ask for. Title shows career growth, but never just get the title and more responsibility with less total compensation. What is it that you can give to get in that negotiation cycle that you can get some kind of promotion, get some kind of value out of all the hard work that you've put into the company? The Like I said, professional development is always something that I saw Tynise nodding her head. Like,
Mhm.
there's education budgets, there's professional development budgets that people and organizations carve out. They don't talk about and say, I really want to attend this women in technical leadership conference. It's $2,000 and I would like the company to pay for it. I will pay my own travel, but I would like them to pay the registration fee. Get that as a negotiating effort. Do something that develops you towards your goal outside of that promotion.
Mhm. I love that too, because it's putting the ball in your court in that you're doing the research and you're deciding this is the thing that will actually help me. And then you're just bringing it to the company to get their approval. Tynise, do you see that come up often in your roles where maybe these companies don't have a professional development stipend already in place, but they're willing to bring that on as a way to retain employees?
Um, I have not seen it in that manner. The previous organization I worked with, that was one of the weak areas is professional development. And that was whether you were coming straight through the door or if you were an existing employee. That was just one of the things that they just never added to their budget, so to speak. So we never really encountered negotiating career development courses, certifications, or things of that nature. However, I have seen organizations that have made that a big deal. We want you to come through the door and we want you to have XYZ certification by X time. So that's a great indication that they already have that planned out in a budget for you to go ahead and proceed with that career development aspect. So that's another piece where if you see that already out there, you can ask questions about it. But nonetheless, negotiating that piece is probably not worth your time because they've already added that portion in there.
And it's a good thing to look for in an interview process to ask those questions. Do you already have something like this in place? Is this something that you'd be willing to consider? WISE is that professional part of that professional development effort in a lot of companies. So, like Donaldson, where Tynise is, as a new hire, you can join WISE if you're a seller, or even be asked to be part of the program to get access to events like this. So, really good takes. And for this last question here, by the way, everyone, if you do want to ask a question, we're coming up on our final question. So the next 10 minutes or so, we'll be wrapping. So throw those questions into the chat or into the ask a question feature. We'll start with you on this question, Tynise. Outside of an interview process or traditional performance review timeframe, what are best practices for engaging in a promotion conversation?
Mhm. So when I give you this information, it is simply coming from experience. Having had coming from an organization that um, I lack those conversations with. However, when I was ready to have those conversations with someone who seemed steady enough, someone that was going to be an advocate for me, a cheerleader that was going to go into the rooms before me and suggest that, I'd be brought up for certain projects or things of that manner. I made sure to have a conversation with that person. So ideally, I see myself going into X position, into a senior role. What does that look like for the organization? And making sure that you
Mhm.
have a clear cut path, direction of what that looks like so that you can intentionally get assignments. You can intentionally work to make sure that you are hitting those points so that when it comes time to have that final conversation about your promotion or your next role, you've hit those points exactly of what they stated. I will also recommend after you have that conversation about those different points that you send a follow-up email. Hey, recapping our conversation when it comes to career advancement. You stated that I needed to meet X, Y, and Z or 1 through 10 in order to advance into my next position. What this does is it keeps a paper trail. So when you are intentionally checking off all of those tasks, all of those assignments that you've worked on in efforts to get to your next role, you have that document to go back on as proof and saying, we've had this discussion, we've had this conversation, and you told me that if I hit 1 through 10, then I will be eligible for my next promotion or my next role. So nonetheless, that paper trail is helpful when it comes to that final role of asking for your promotion. But I would always start off with that conversation of them laying out what is expected of you. Because you don't want to go into it, you don't want to complete tasks that you think are suitable for the next role and they're not. Um, Perhaps it was just busy work and you're seeing it as, enough work to get you to that next role, and it really is not. So having that clear direction so that you're not blindly um, moving forward is highly beneficial.
Angela, anything to add to that?
Um, yeah, I would say, because the question is like, what do you do? How do you prepare for this? How do you
Mm-hmm.
prepare for this outside of a performance review? One, use that performance review time appropriately. This is performance review season, and I had a wonderful woman come to me and she said, okay, you put me as meets expectations on this skill set. What do I need to do to get to exceeds? What are the two things that you think if I did, I could get to that highest level? That's very concrete. But having her ask me that, just to Tynese's point, what is the thing that puts me over the top? Give me an example. Help open that door for me. Can we talk about this again in a month? Because I want to work on this piece. So having that concrete example on the rubric for your career. Now, I came from startups, so there's no like rubrics for just go bust it and like do all the things that are asked of you and then 1,000 things more. But I will say that you will get that promotion after you've already been a leader, not by title, but by influence and action. So, manifest your destiny, but you lead before you get the title. You lead before you get the promotion. You're doing things outside of the duties as designed by your job. You're organizing maybe side trainings. You're helping somebody without being asked to do that. You are showing those leadership qualities. You're also writing them down. You're also making sure other people see them. I know that seems weird, but lead before you ask for the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sit in the job for 10 years. I mean, like, I've been here for 10 years. I get the promotion. You've been doing the same year over and over again. Do the work to get to that next level. The last thing I would say is perception is reality. You have to have aspects and feedback, not only from your direct hiring manager, but from others within the sphere of influence. Go make a friend, go make the other sales territory leaders say, hey, can I talk to you? I'd really love to understand what you think about my performance and what is my brand external to what my manager says my brand is, external to what I say my brand is. get the inputs from different people. My career at ThoughtSpot, I was very blessed to have the CMO as a trusted advisor and source to help me along my career path. Notice that's marketing, that's not sales, but that's somebody that I cared about. What did he think I was doing? What did my work show up externally into different departments? And how was I viewed as a leader before getting that promotion and title? So get that external opinion and also be vulnerable to hear that you might not be as great as you think you are, or you might not be as great as your direct manager who might leave in 4 months thinks you are, but you need other inputs and a little bit of thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
To Angela's point,
yeah.
you may be, I'm sorry.
You're coming through. It was a slight delay, but you're coming through.
Okay. Sorry about that. In the same token that you may not be as good as you think you are, you may be better than you think you are as well. So as women, we tend to have imposter syndrome a lot. And once again, going back to Angela's point, documenting your work, making sure that it is known that you're doing X, Y, and Z helps when it comes to getting a promotion as well. That is not a time to be humble about things that you have taken care of, especially if it's over and beyond your current duties. That's the time to let it be known. Even if you don't want to vocalize it to your manager each time that you do something, which can become uncomfortable. That's totally explainable, understandable. But documenting it in a separate spreadsheet or a separate Word doc of the steps that you've taken, so that when it comes to that conversation being had, you always have that document to go back to. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how everyone else's memory work, but mine does not always serve me well. So documenting helps a lot for me, even if it's a little post-it note or something like that, and just, adding it to a blank sheet whenever you complete something, and then later down the line you compile it. But just make sure you're not necessarily humble, but you're not very condescending as well, conceited when it comes to the duties that you've done. And there's a nice balance in there, but don't be humble about it.
Yeah. That's such great points across the board. And I think that the idea of getting feedback that could be negative and then also positive, to not shy away from it and think of it more as data points that you're collecting to better round out your view of yourself, so that you can then advocate in the right way or gain a different skill set that maybe you're coming short on. Y'all spoke to that so well. And then write it all down, which is so hard for us to remember to do, but to do it consistently is key. This is a good place to stop because we're right up at time. So we'll go ahead and wrap here for the day. Thank you both so much for sharing your insights on this topic. As a reminder for everyone, we will send a recap with LinkedIn's of both of these ladies, as well as today's takeaways. That'll come tomorrow, so you'll have access to that and the recording then. And as a reminder, Donaldson is hiring. So if you're interested in exploring new opportunities, be sure to check out the job board on womeninSalesEverywhere.com to sign up for a membership and gain access to those open roles. For those of you in New York, we have an event coming up on next Wednesday, May 1st. So we hope to see you there. You can register at womeninSalesEverywhere.com. As always, we invite you to come for the conversation and stay for the community. See you next time, everyone.